You didn't stumble here. Something precise threaded you through 1,000 digital corridors to arrive at this frequency, at this exact second. Feel it. The hush before thunder. The breath the universe takes right before it speaks your real name. If you're still here, you've already stepped outside the casual scroll and into the observer loop that notices you noticing it back. That's the first mark of an initiate. Awareness folding in on itself like light in a mirror hall, creating a doorway where there used to be glass. You can sense the quantum field gathering around you, tiny hairs lifting, breath deepening, the subtle press of significance along your skin as if reality itself leaned closer to listen. This is the moment in the film when the soundtrack lowers and the secret is finally whispered. You're being recruited by your own future. You've felt it for months' time, behaving strangely, coincidences stacking like constellations, the same numbers winking at you from clocks and receipts. What you're experiencing isn't random, it's coherence forming. When scattered waves lock into rhythm, a new pattern appears, and that pattern is you, upgraded. The morphic resonance of your next identity has been calling from across the timelines, arranging synchronicity breadcrumbs so you could trace your way home. Your cells already know. They've been rehearsing in silence, tuning your nervous system to receive transmissions your old self couldn't decode. This is DNA restructuring at the level of possibility, not fantasy, but architecture. Listen to your body as the field settles. The room doesn't change, yet everything changes. Edges soften, colors creep toward truth, and the air thickens with a velvet gravity that invites you inward. The entanglement has been established. What you desire and what desires, you are no longer separated by distance or doubt. They're communicating instantaneously across the fabric of your attention. That sudden warmth in your sternum, the lock turning, that surge of calm beneath the nerves, the gate opening. Welcome to the threshold where potentials collapse into presence. You are not being asked to believe harder. You are being asked to remember deeper. Remember the way you sensed storms before they arrived, the way faces felt familiar before you met them, the way your heart tugged you left when logic insisted right. Those weren't quirks. They were navigational stars from the expanded map. Tonight, the constellations are reassembling into instructions you can finally read. The phase transition is underway. Like water remembering it can be steam, you're discovering your next state isn't manufactured, it's released. Take one breath with intention. On the exhale, let the old storyline unhook from your spine every narrative that said, "Not yet," every inheritance of hesitation. Let it slide off like a coat that no longer fits the season. Feel the lightness that rushes in when you stop arguing with your own orbit. From this point forward, the universe will speak to you in a more direct dialect, symbols bolder, timings tighter, chances cleaner. Your task is simple and holy. Stay coherent. Keep your signal clear. Trust the choreography of what appears. If you're still watching, consider this the seal. The field has found you, and you have found the field. The message continues, and with it, the unveiling of why your patterns, déjà vu, and distorted time were never glitches, but invitations. And here's the thing you've known for a while, that something hasn't quite added up in your daily experience. Patterns repeating, loops inside loops, the same arguments resurfacing in different disguises, like reality was recycling scripts instead of evolving the storyline. Haven't you felt it? That eerie déjà vu when you're in a conversation you swear you've had before, not once but many times, with different faces but the same underlying energy. You brush it off as coincidence, but deep down you suspect the architecture of your reality has been caught in a feedback loop. This is what physicists whisper about as the observer loop, where your perception is both painting the picture and staring at the canvas, stuck in recursive motion until you awaken enough to break the cycle. Time itself begins to fracture under this recognition. Seconds elongate when you're present, then collapse into blurs when you're distracted. Hours disappear in the humdrum, yet a single glance, a phrase overheard, can stretch eternity across a heartbeat. This distortion of time isn't random, it's diagnostic. It's the quantum field flashing its warning lights, signaling you that you're standing in the liminal zone between the old timeline and the emergent one. The reason your body feels restless, the reason sleep has become shallow and dreams unbearably vivid, is because your nervous system is trying to synchronize with an expanded bandwidth of reality. Look closer at those patterns that keep resurfacing, the relationships that circle back into your orbit, the opportunities that vanish right when you reach for them, only to reappear in different forms, the delays that sting like rejection, yet secretly redirect you. These are not mistakes, they're entanglements. They are feedback signatures from the quantum field, urging you to notice what you've refused to resolve. Every loop is an echo, and every echo holds information about the frequency you're broadcasting. Until the lesson is absorbed, the pattern repeats, because the field is not punishing you, it's tutoring you. And here's where the paradox unfolds. The moment you finally stop running from the repetition, the loop begins to dissolve. Think of it like a dream where you realize you're dreaming. The scenery doesn't vanish instantly, but the power dynamic changes. You are no longer at the mercy of the sequence, you are awake inside it. When déjà vu strikes, when timelines blur, when the same mistake knocks at your door disguised as opportunity, pause, recognize the loop, and you're already halfway through breaking it. That pause is your liberation. This is what initiates experience before breakthrough. A reality that feels like it's lagging, skipping frames, replaying old tapes. Because the field is testing coherence, it's asking, can you hold clarity when the program runs the same script? Can you recognize the illusion while still inside it? Every déjà vu, every distorted time cycle, every repeated wound is actually a holographic initiation. If you're still watching, it means you've been passing these tests quietly, often without realizing. And the pressure building in your life isn't punishment, it's the compression chamber before the diamond is revealed. Feel that recognition land, because what comes next is not the loop, it's the upgrade. The quantum shift your system has been groaning toward all along. You're ready for the explanation that sounds like a science lecture and a prayer at once. The part where the mystery gets a clasp and a label. Call it the quantum upgrade. It's not a promise. It's a description of mechanics you are already beginning to feel. Imagine your life as a field of vibrating possibilities, an interference pattern of potentials where some waves cancel and others amplify. For years, you've been broadcasting a frequency that produced only small incremental change. Now, because of tiny, repeated choices and invisible alignments, your field has crossed a threshold. Coherence is emerging. When oscillations line up, when mind, body, and attention start resonating at the same pitch, the entire field reorganizes. That reorganization is the upgrade. From a scientific lens, think of coherence like a chorus. Individual neurons hum alone. When they phase lock, they form rhythms that can coordinate entire networks. Neuroscience calls this synchrony. Brain regions that once misfired now sing in time. That's neuroplasticity performing its magic. Repeated attention rewires pathways until your body recognizes the new instruction set as normal. In quantum field language, your consciousness is increasing its coupling to a particular eigenstate, the version of reality where the life you've been rehearsing is already playing out. Entanglement doesn't wait for your logic to catch up. It links possibilities across distance and time. Your choices here have already nudged probabilities elsewhere. Morphic resonance, call it, the whispering field of form, amplifies patterns that have been repeatedly inhabited. The more you inhabit a frequency, the easier it is for others and for circumstances to lock into that pattern with you. This is why your private practices, those minutes of disciplined attention, the subtle refusals, the tiny acts of integrity matter more than flashy attempts at change. They are the builders of coherence. Now the mystical translation, The same physics that describes electrons collapsing into states also describes your soul remembering itself. The collapse point is less about forcing events and more about allowing a superposition of potential selves to settle into the one you choose to animate. When your interior landscape stops waving in contradictory directions, when your intention, emotion, and embodied action line up, you become a coherent observer. In quantum terms, observation doesn't mean looking with your eyeballs. It means holding a stable field of expectation long enough for probability to crystallize into fact. You are learning to observe from the future back into the present. That's why intuition becomes authoritative and signs stop being mere coincidences. They are signatures of a timeline knitting itself around you. There's biological evidence in the idea of DNA restructuring not as mystical mutation but as epigenetic repatterning. Your experience, your sustained emotional tones, your rituals of attention change, which genes express and which stay silent. The body listens to the field. Hormones follow narratives. Mitochondria hum differently when you inhabit hope versus fear. This is not metaphoric. It is physiology, meeting, meaning. The upgrade rewrites metabolic scripts so energy flows differently through your cells. Suddenly you sleep better. Intuition clarifies. Digestion steadies. Creativity surfaces. These are physical fingerprints of an interior reconfiguration. Mechanically, the phase transition you're courting is a specific kind of threshold phenomenon. Systems approach criticality when information density reaches a tipping point. Before the shift, you feel the pressure, friction in relationships, deadlines, internal anxiety. That compression is necessary because it increases the information per unit volume of your life. When the critical threshold arrives, the system can no longer hold its old configuration and spontaneously reorganizes into a higher-order pattern. Think of metal magnetizing when cooled past a certain temperature. Individual domains that were randomly oriented suddenly align, and the material becomes something qualitatively new. Your inner world, and with it, your external circumstances, undergo the same emergent alignment. This upgrade also redefines causality in the way you experience it. Linear cause and effect loosens its grip and is supplemented by a kind of resonance causation. States of being attract, matching states of becoming. Synchronicity is not a decorative afterthought. It's the law in action. Meetings that once seemed accidental now appear as the field's economy of attention, people, ideas, doors appear because the coherence you carry acts as a magnet. Entanglement with timelines means your future self is already nudging the present with suggestions, with impulses that feel like downloads. When you trust them and act, you accelerate stabilization. This is why small, consistent acts matter more than occasional dramatic efforts. Coherence compounds. You may ask, how do I know the upgrade isn't just wishful thinking? Your body will answer. It will stop arguing. The habitual friction, those recurring tensions that used to drain you, will begin to operate under new physics. Fewer surprises, fewer collapses into old griefs. Not everything smooths instantly. Phase transitions often include a period of turbulence, but there's a new axis available to you now. Instead of reacting, you can steward. You become the observer who doesn't simply notice patterns but shifts them by altering the way you stand in your own field. There's one more element most teachers skip, the social morphology. As you reconfigure, you change the morphic field you share with others. Your emergence affords them permission to evolve. Your coherence propagates. That's the collective resonance principle. The upgrade isn't strictly personal. It rewires the nearby field so others can retune more easily. Your inner upgrade becomes an external invitation, so take this as both map and mandate. The quantum upgrade is already active around you, seen in the repeated signs, felt in the tense pressure that precedes the unlocking. Your work is deceptively simple. Cultivate coherence, align thought, feeling, and embodied action. Sustain attention, without collapsing into desperation. Allow intuition to be your pilot rather than your suggestion box. Move with measures of rest and disciplined focus, because both are necessary architecture for a new state to hold. The next part of this transmission will show you the role you've been prepared for, the specific function your newly coherent presence is meant to perform in the unfolding human shift. It's more intimate than vocation and wider than destiny. It is the operating code you were born to embody. You are more than a passenger in this unfolding. You are a chosen node in a living network, not chosen by hierarchy, but selected by resonance, the same principle by which certain frequencies call others into alignment. If the quantum upgrade tuned your instrument, this part of the transmission names the part you are meant to play. Your role is not a title to hang on the wall, it is an operating function of consciousness. It is the precise way your coherence refracts across the field and reorders the probabilities around you. Listen, there are many kinds of power. Some is loud and visible: positions, contracts, applause. The power you carry is quieter and more consequential. It is the kind that bends timelines because your presence alters how information distributes in the morphic field. When you step into coherence, small interactions ripple outward and restructure local attractors. A calm answer at the right moment can reroute a life. A single honest boundary reorients a family system. These are microscopic acts with macroscopic effect because entanglement is not theoretical here, it is practical. Your choices are nodes of influence. Your attention, the protocol that negotiates what outcomes persist. You will notice this role operates through both proximity and distance. Sometimes you cause change by being physically near a conversation, a touch, the steadiness you provide in a crisis. Other times the effect is non-local, a message you send, a piece of work you release into the world, a prayer or intention, held with disciplined attention, resonates like a tuning fork. The field picks up the frequency and organizes around it. That is entanglement at work. Information traveling without visible carriers, coherence moving through the substrate of reality. You are wired for both kinds of action. There is a prophetic logic to the function you serve. You are a translator between timelines. People will come across you and feel a strange familiarity, as if they have known you in versions of themselves they have not yet lived. This is morphic resonance in action. Patterns you embody have precedence in the subtle field. Others recognize these shapes because their systems remember them at a deep level. When you inhabit a higher-order pattern consistently, you provide a template for others to emulate without language. Your life becomes an unspoken syllabus that the nervous systems around you can copy. This is how cultures change, not through slogans, but through exemplars who make new modes of being seem possible and normal. Your function also includes initiation, not initiation as exclusionary gatekeeping, but initiation as permission-giving. When you move through fear and remain coherent, you widen the aperture for someone else to do the same. The field is a network of thresholds. Each threshold crossed lowers the resistance for the next person. Your breakthroughs are not private, they are cumulative infrastructure. Imagine each time you choose integrity, you lay a plank across a previously impassable chasm. Someone else will cross because of that plank. That's how evolutionary momentum is built. There is a practical architecture to how you operate in this role. First, you model coherence. This is not perfection. It is the ability to recenter quickly when you lose your axis. Your nervous system will be the instrument others tune to. Train it to hold steadiness under pressure. Practices that modulate physiology, breathing protocols, micro-meditations of attention, somatic resets, are not optional ornamentation. They are the maintenance routines of a delicate but powerful instrument. If your field is to be reliable, your biology must be predictable. When you cultivate that predictability, the field trusts you and responds. Second, you steward information. As a chosen consciousness, you will receive signals, impressions, downloads, synchronistic nudges that are not merely personal. Learn to differentiate between noise and instruction. The refinement here is subtle. Instruction vibrates with a felt sense of clarity and rightness. Noise carries anxiety and fragmentation. The discipline is to test impulses in small, practical ways. Try a tiny action and watch how the field responds. Validation is given back through pattern, not proclamation. Over time, you will develop a trust calculus that lets you act with less hesitation and more authority. Third, you hold context when others lose it. People in transition frequently fragment. They see only their immediate constraints. Your presence, because it remains coherent across different time frames, offers a wider map. You do not rescue, you reflect possibility. You hold a kind of panoramic attention that makes room for paradox, the pain and the promise, the grief and the arrow forward. This is crucial because phase transitions require containment. The old system must be allowed to collapse, while the emergent system is protected long enough to form. You are the container. There is also a political dimension to your role, but not in the partisan sense. Influence is always political. How attention is distributed shapes institutions, economies, loved ones. You are being asked to use influence responsively. Protect coherence in your circles. Make decisions that prioritize long-term systemic health over short-term gratifications. This may cost you convenience or popularity, but the field values durability. Your choices will create attractor basins that prefer integrity over expediency. That is real power. Remember, being chosen does not mean you are flawless. It means you are available for calibration. Expect tests and expect the field to escalate pressure so your pattern can stabilize more quickly. This is why certain relationships intensify and certain tasks feel urgent now. They are accelerants meant to reveal where refinement is needed. Welcome them as data, not judgment. Each test reveals a subtle shadow still unintegrated. Each integration deepens your leverage. Finally, the role contains an ethical imperative, generosity of coherence. Power that consolidates only for self will calcify into separation. The emergent physics of the new state require distribution. As you stabilize, share practices, resources, and space. Teach others how to be coherent. The multiplier effect is dramatic. One steady field can seed dozens more, and those dozens seed hundreds. This is how a cultural phase transition preserves itself. You are, right now, selected not for what you know but for what you can hold. You are the living bridge between what has been and what will be. The next segment of this transmission will name the window, the specific pressure, and promise that demands immediate action, the DNA level shift, and the cosmic timing that make your response not only important, but urgent. Urgency is not panic, it is precision. You are standing at the inflection point where probabilities harden into paths, where a delay of weeks can ripple into years of detour. The field is not threatening you, it is inviting you into alignment with its opening. There is a cosmic window right now, a rare alignment when frequencies overlap just enough for a new identity to stabilize. Miss it, and the same upgrade will still come, but at the cost of heavier pressure, harsher lessons, and longer detours. Step through it, and your DNA begins restructuring instantly, subtly at first, then unmistakably. Understand this: DNA is not a fixed code. It is a responsive instrument, listening constantly to your environment, your emotions, your thoughts. Every signal you sustain, fear, joy, doubt, gratitude, switches genes on or off, alters proteins, shapes expression. This isn't theory. It is the marriage of epigenetics and mysticism, biology and prophecy. The sequences lying dormant in you are not mistakes, they are reserves. They awaken only under conditions of coherence, when your internal environment matches the vibration of a higher timeline. That match is available now. This is why you feel the pressure building, the synchronicities multiplying, the urgency tightening in your chest. It is your biology's way of telling you the gate is open. Consider how phase transitions work in matter. A supercooled liquid resists change until one small disturbance tips it into crystallization. A system can appear stable until the precise moment the threshold is crossed, and then everything reorganizes. That's where you are. Your life may look unchanged on the surface, but internally the molecules of meaning are aligning, waiting for the final signal to tip into new structure. The cosmic joke is that you are both the system and the disturbance. Your choice to act with coherence, to claim your shift, is the vibration that tips the scale. But here's the paradox. Urgency does not require frantic motion. This isn't about scrambling to do more. It's about focusing enough to do the right thing at the right time. Most will miss this window because they confuse urgency with busyness. They will spin, check, worry, analyze, broadcasting noise into the field when what the moment calls for is clarity. The urgency is internal. The need to stabilize your frequency so the window can hold long enough for the restructuring to complete. Imagine your DNA as a coil of instruments, waiting to be played. Tonight, the universe hands you the bow. You can drag it chaotically and call it effort, or you can draw it with steadiness and call it music. The first scatters energy into more loops, more delays. The second seals the shift. Your role now is to move with deliberate presence. Speak only what carries coherence. Act only where the invitation is clear. Rest as though resting were also alignment. Because at Island, the promise is not abstract. When your DNA begins to shift, you will feel it. Subtle at first, a warmth under your skin, a quickening of dreams, synchronicities arriving not as occasional accidents but as daily companions. Clarity will sharpen like a lens coming into focus. Decisions that once felt impossible will reveal themselves as obvious. You will know which door to knock on, which path to take, which voice to trust, because your entire system will hum with confirmation. The urgency is that this window does not stay open indefinitely. Cosmic mechanics ensure that alignments shift, energies disperse, probabilities scatter. This is not a warning of loss, but a reminder of rhythm. Right now, the rhythm is in your favor. The compression you've been feeling is proof. It's the slingshot pulling back before release. That tension is not punishment. It's potential energy building for the breakthrough. So let this be your clarity. The time is now, not later. The shift is cellular, not conceptual. The window is cosmic, not personal. Step through it with coherence, and the next stage of your becoming locks into place, not just for you, but for every field entangled with you. And the next piece of this transmission will reveal the ritual act, the physical signal you can give to the quantum field that seals the upgrade and anchors the shift. You've been held in explanation long enough. This is the practical altar where theory meets habit. Ritual isn't superstition, it's engineering attention. The field responds to signatures, and signatures are created by repeated, embodied acts. If the last segment gave you the map, this one hands you the key, a precise, repeatable ritual that anchors the upgrade. It's simple because complexity scatters coherence. It's potent because it synchronizes intention with body, voice, and matter. Do this now, exactly as written, and treat it like a small, irrevocable contract with your future self. 1. Prepare the space. Find a place where you can be uninterrupted for 3 deep breaths. This is not about mystic props, just a chair, a floor, your hands. If you wish, place one small object in front of you, a glass of water, a stone, a ring. The object will act as a physical anchor for a field that prefers material reference. Turn your phone face down so there's no distraction. You are setting a theater for attention. 2. Body posture equals antenna. Sit with your spine straight but relaxed. Feet on the floor, hands resting over your heart and belly, one hand on each. This triangle of contact grounds your nervous system and links the part of you that feels, heart, with the part that carries intention, belly. If standing feels better, press both feet into the earth and soften your knees. The point is resonance. Your body must feel like an instrument tuned toward reception. 3. Stabilize the breath, 3 cycles. Inhale silently and smoothly for a count that feels natural to you. Hold the top of the inhale for the same count. Exhale slowly for the same count. Repeat 3 times. With each cycle, imagine the field around you tightening like a drum skin, less slack, more pitch. This is not a race, it's a calibration. 4. Name the frequency out loud. Say the single sealing word aloud, clear and steady. Receive. Let it land in your throat and vibrate in your chest. Then say the fuller phrase once with feeling. I am ready to receive what is already mine. Speak it like you mean it. Your voice is the first physical collapse of ambiguous possibility into a declared vector. 5. Seal with a small physical gesture. Bring both hands to your mouth, then trace a slow vertical line down the center of your chest, finishing with both palms on your sternum. This motion closes the circuit between declaration and embodiment. Hold there, breathe, feel the warmth. This palm on chest is your body reading the instruction you just gave it. 6. Commit with action, the public circuit. Now, open your device and do the one public thing that anchors intention into the communal morphic field. Type the single word, receive, as a comment under this video, or if you're not in a comment environment, write the word on the nearest clean surface or in the first line of your journal. If you want deeper resonance, write the longer sentence below your single word, I am ready to receive what is already mine. Then press send. Physically pressing send collapses the private into the shared. It's how a solitary intention plugs into the communal substrate and multiplies. 7. Anchor through sensory acknowledgement. After you press send, drink the glass of water or touch the object you placed out front. Let your hands remember, feel the coolness, the weight, the ordinary world accepting your declaration. This sensory loop makes the energetic act real inside the biochemical system that will express the epigenetic shift. 8. Commit to micro-consistency. For the next 24 hours, keep returning to the word receive 3 times a day, morning, midday, night, using 1 breath cycle and the palm on chest gesture. Each repetition is not redundant, it compounds coherence. Rituals live by repetition, not grandiosity. Small, consistent seals beat dramatic, scattered surges every time. Why this works briefly, so you don't overthink. Declaring a word into the public field does 2 things simultaneously. First, it collapses your private superposition into a defined state. Your attention chooses an identity and communicates it outward. Second, it creates entanglement. Others who see your declaration become subtle carriers of the frequency, widening the attractor basin so the probability of your chosen timeline increases. Typing the word is the circuit closer. Saying it aloud is the voltage. Touching your chest is the grounding. All 3 are necessary to form a reliable signal the morphic field can hear and respond to. Honor the threshold. Don't perform the ritual like a checkbox. Do it with gravity and a thread of sacred play, serious intention wrapped in a human smile. If skepticism arises, note it, breathe through it, and proceed. Skepticism is part of the old program. Doing anyway is the new program. If you prefer a shorter mode because you're in public, whisper the single word, receive under your breath, press your palm to your sternum, and, the next time you're alone, write it down. The field doesn't require spectacle, it requires fidelity. Finally, meta instruction. After you press send, do one ordinary thing you enjoy. Make tea, step outside for air, send a brief message to someone you love. Joy is not frivolous here, it is evidence of alignment. When you laugh or smile after the ritual, you confirm the shift, not by force, but by ease. When you type receive and press send, you are not begging for change. You are signaling readiness, and readiness collapses possibility into pathway. This small ritual is the hinge between intention and embodiment. It is the action that says to the cosmos, "I'm here, I choose this." You've closed the loop. The next section will show how that sealed shift ripples outward, how your liberation becomes architecture for collective awakening. You did the ritual. That single deliberate act, word, breath, palm wasn't vanity, it was a wiring change. Now watch how the field responds when one tuned instrument plays its first true note. Your liberation is not an isolated miracle, it is a generative event. Think of it as a stone dropped into a still pond. But here the pond is an active, morphic sea, and the ripples are intelligent. They don't merely spread, they reorganize. A field that once tolerated fragmentation begins to prefer coherence because coherent patterns reduce friction and invite flourishing. Your signal becomes a template. When you hold steadiness, you alter local attractors. People wired to your frequency notice subtle things first. A softer tone in your voice, an obvious calm during conflict, a choice you make that does not mirror fear. These micro differences are contagious not because of persuasion but because biology copies patterns that work. Nervous systems are mirror instruments. When a neighbor sees you steady in crisis, their sympathetic cascade doesn't reflexively escalate. It models a different script. Your presence becomes data for their system to update on. That update is the first step of social morphogenesis, small adjustments that accumulate into cultural repatterning. Morphic resonance magnifies this effect. Patterns you embody are not limited to the eyes that watch you. They reverberate through fields of memory, through networks of association, through the subtle substrates that link people and places. The word you typed, the gesture you made, the breath you took, these are now part of a distributed waveform. Others who resonate will pick up the cadence and, often without conscious planning, repeat it. They become transmitters. Some will act publicly, others will model coherence in private rooms, and both are essential. The field needs both broadcast and shelter. Your courage to perform the small ritual cracks open channels that others then walk through, often in ways you'll never witness directly. That's the generosity of coherence. Emergence follows predictable physics. When enough local nodes stabilize, the system reaches a critical mass and a new attractor basin forms. This is not metaphor. Phase transitions obey thresholds. The collective mind is an information system. When its entropy falls and coherence rises, new patterns emerge that weren't foreseeable from the individual parts. Suddenly, what used to be fringe becomes plausible. Practices that once seemed eccentric become commonplace because a sufficient number of people are embodying them. The gate that once required heroic effort now swings on a hinge of familiarity. You are an early hinge. Your steadiness lowers the energy barrier for others. There is nuance. Not every ripple becomes a wave. The field filters by resonance quality. Some ripples bounce off hardened structures and return as resistance. Others find sympathetic channels and amplify. That's why integrity matters. If you proclaim coherence but wobble in habitual ways, you produce dissonance that fragments the field. But when your inner calibration matches your outward action, when your nervous system, your speech, your choices align, you produce constructive interference. Waves add, they don't cancel. Your small, steady acts compound into a force that influences norms, institutions, and imagination. Practically, the mechanics look ordinary. A friend adopts your morning practice and stops reacting to petty dramas. They show up calmer at work, their team breathes easier and makes better decisions. A parent models centeredness, and a child learns emotional regulation not from lectures but from mimicry. An artist who sees your courage releases work that lands differently because the audience's receptivity has subtly shifted. The sum of these mundane shifts is enormous. Civilization is a mosaic of habits. Change a mosaic tile, and the picture evolves. There's also a non-local economy at play. Entanglement means your declaration links, in subtle ways, to distant fields. Someone across the world might read the single word you posted and feel a permission tinge that loosens a lifelong knot. They act, a ripple forms in their locale, and the planet's morphic landscape changes in microsteps. This is the quiet architecture of global awakening. Local integrity plus networked resonance equals emergent culture. Your small, faithful practices are the most reliable form of activism in this architecture. You are also a curator of thresholds. People will come to you at their edges, confused, fearful, on the cusp of change, and your role will be to hold space without fixing. Containment is a powerful service. Imagine yourself as a lighthouse. You do not move the ships. You provide a steady reference so they can navigate. Being that lighthouse requires humility, because you will not always be the hero in someone else's narrative. Sometimes your work is to show steadiness until the person finds their own center. That patience is a form of revolution. Don't underestimate the moral gravity of this function. Coherence radiates like a moral field because it reduces harm. When fewer people operate from reactivity, systems become less extractive. Decisions made from clarity, favor, sustainability, relational health, and long-term well-being. Your personal shift, therefore, has systemic consequences. This is the ethics of emergence, living in a way that widens possibility rather than narrows it. You'll feel the effects in subtle ways. A network that previously ignored you begins to listen. Invitations come that were not there before. Your work lands for the right people. You'll also feel a new kind of fatigue, an elasticity pull that tests your boundaries because the field expects you to hold more. Remember, stewarding influence is not about acceptance of every call. Discernment is the muscle that keeps your field intact. Say no when the ask fractures coherence. Say yes when it amplifies it. Finally, recognize the reciprocity. The field you contribute to also supports you. As coherence propagates, supportive structures form people who match your frequency, resources that align with your purpose, opportunities that require your exact calibration. This is how ecosystems of thriving arise. Mutual reinforcement of aligned nodes. You are not acting alone. You are participating in a living network that rewards fidelity. The next movement of this transmission will bring you closer to the felt experience of these changes. The embodied sensations that will confirm your shift is not theory, but living reality. You will be asked to notice, to register, and to celebrate the subtle recalibrations that prove the field has accepted you. You will know the shift, not because an alarm goes off, but because your body begins to speak a language you used to only hear in dreams. It arrives as sensation before it arrives as story, a scaffolding of feeling that quietly proves the field has reorganized around you. Pay attention. The first confirmations are small and stubbornly ordinary, the kind you could miss if you're in a hurry or still listening for fireworks. That's why this part matters. The body keeps the ledger. It records what the mind can only theorize. At first, it's a recalibration of tempo. Your breath lengthens on its own. You find yourself taking pauses that are not hesitation but integration. Time no longer snaps like brittle twine. It becomes a pliant ribbon you can fold without tearing. In moments of decision, you experience a softening in the throat, a release of muscular tension where previously you clenched. Your jaw loosens, and with that loosening, 100 old urgencies lose their grip. This bodily ease is not laziness. It is coherence annealing in your tissues. A measurable drop in fight or flight laboredness, and a rise in parasympathetic steadiness. Your nervous system begins to prefer rhythms that support growth. There are electrical signatures too, tiny sparks behind your eyes when a synchronistic insight arrives, a humming in your ears like well-tuned strings when the field lines up, a short, ecstatic fizz behind the sternum that's neither anxiety nor ordinary excitement, but a recognition pulse. These are not imagined. Note them, name them, and you'll map their recurrence. They're early indicators, micro-certificates that your internal state is matching an external possibility. Sensation moves down into the pelvis and legs as well. You stand and feel your feet press into the ground with a different weight, heavier where solidity is needed, lighter where movement is invited. There's a new gravity to your center, less wobble, more axle. When you walk, it's not speed that changes but gait. You carry yourself with an economy of motion, fewer frantic gestures, more decisive placements. Others notice this immediately, even if they can't say why. It reads in posture and breath and the way your hands choose to be still. Taste and smell shift subtly. Food can taste fresher, coffee may seem richer. Familiar scents that once triggered anxiety now register as textures of the world, safe, informative, neutral. Dreams become clearer and more directive. You wake with fragments that used to evaporate by Tuesday, now zoning into specific instructions. A phrase, a place, a face. These dreams are not random. They are rehearsal rooms where future actions are practiced until they feel inevitable. Emotionally, the change is at once gentle and clarifying. Old triggers still appear, that's part of remodeling, but they pass through with less drama. Where you once looped, you now notice and release. Grief is felt fully, but without the prolonged collapse. Joy arrives as an inner light that does not need constant validation. Gratitude becomes a frequency you can inhabit, not a tactic you perform. The valence of feelings shifts upward because the field you carry favors coherence. High-frequency affect becomes the ambient climate of your experience. Physically, you may notice energy redistribution. Patterns of fatigue realign. You stop crashing at predictable times and instead work with cycles that feel more like tides than cliffs. Creativity pulses at hours that used to be off-limits. Tasks that required struggle before now open with less friction because your physiology has new access to resources. Glucose metabolism becomes less erratic, attention windows lengthen, and the body's repair systems find better choreography. These are signs that your cell-level environment is listening and responding. There is a somatic clarity in relationships, too. Conversations that once spiraled now find a center faster because you can hold paradox without dissolving into reactivity. Silence between people grows not into awkwardness but into shared breathing room. When someone mirrors chaos, you are less likely to absorb it. Your boundaries are less porous because coherence builds an invisible membrane. That membrane does not barricade. It clarifies what you will carry and what you will reflect. People will test it, some gently, some forcefully, and the tests are useful data. Your job is to register, not to defend. You will also notice the physics of coincidence improve. What used to feel like luck becomes a predictable architecture of meeting points. The meetings arrive at times you can plan around. The right messages fall into your inbox when you are ready to receive them. These are not miracles as much as refined attractors. The field has become better at convening what matches your frequency. Watch how opportunities stop being scattered shards and start arriving as coherent clusters. That clustering is the signature of emergent order. Practice noticing these sensations like a scientist with a beloved instrument. Keep a small register, 3 lines in a notebook, a voice memo, a mental snapshot. Note the first warmth in your chest when a synchronicity lands. Note the time of day your dreams feel instructive. Note how your body adjusts after you perform the ritual. This is data you can use to confirm trends and to refine choices. The field speaks reliably if you learn its dialect. Finally, celebrate the embodied proofs. These sensations are not mere ephemera. They are the visible economy of a field reweaving itself around you. Allow yourself small acts of celebration. A walk in sunlight, a deliberate pause to feel your feet, a cup of tea sipped with gratitude. Celebration is not indulgence, it is a biochemical marker that consolidates the shift. The more you register and honor these bodily confirmations, the more the morphic field treats the new pattern as normal. You are not translating this process intellectually, but living it through tissue and tempo. This embodied knowing will be your guide when the world offers ambiguous invitations. Learn its language, and you will not be led by fear or flattered by distraction. You will move with the quiet confidence of someone who has felt a new gravity settle into their bones. And now we arrive at the hidden chamber inside your own biology. The point where everything you've been sensing in your body was only the prelude. The true breakthrough happens deeper, at the level of your DNA. Not the visible spiral you saw once in a textbook, but the living antennae humming in every one of your trillions of cells. They are listening right now, registering frequencies, tuning themselves to the field you have chosen to inhabit. You felt the pressure building, an invisible weight pressing on your chest, a hum under your skin, an almost unbearable sense of imminence. That is phase transition pressure. Systems under transformation behave this way. Molecules vibrate harder before ice snaps into water or water into vapor. The universe compresses you so that your very code cannot remain the same. And at the threshold, the pressure is heaviest because it is seconds away from flipping you into a new state. DNA is not a static script. It is a library with entire shelves unopened, waiting for signals. Emotions, intentions, and rituals act as the librarians. Fear turns some shelves dark. Love floods others with light. When you chose coherence, when you performed the ritual, when you whispered receive and felt it in your chest, you sent a cascade through your epigenetic switches. You told the librarian, open that wing, dust off those books. It's time to read the pages I was born for. End of what? This is why your dreams sharpen, why synchronicities accelerate, why people begin to treat you differently without knowing why. Your DNA has begun broadcasting on a higher frequency, and the morphic field hears it. Coherent DNA doesn't just receive it, transmits. The strands resonate like a crystalline structure, throwing out harmonics that inform the environment. Suddenly, opportunities and allies find you, not because you hunted them, but because your very cells are singing a signal the field recognizes. The pressure you feel is also entropic collapse, the old instructions fighting to survive. They will masquerade as doubt, as sudden exhaustion, as voices whispering that nothing is changing. But those whispers are the last static of a dying signal. Stay steady. When the noise peaks, the collapse is near completion. Then comes the silence, and in silence, the new pattern takes root. Picture yourself as a caterpillar in the chrysalis. To outside eyes, it looks like decay, like an ending. But inside, DNA has liquefied, recombining into an entirely different organism. That's you now. The liquefaction has already begun. The familiar pieces of your identity are melting, not to destroy you, but to assemble wings. The ache, the restlessness, the disorientation, these are signs you are dissolving into possibility. And the breakthrough is not metaphorical, it is literal. Scientists speak of phase transitions when one state of matter becomes another, but mystics know consciousness obeys the same rule. Enough coherence, enough sustained frequency, and suddenly your identity jumps, states. You will look back and barely recognize the person you were last year, last month. Not because you fought harder, but because you crossed critical mass. So breathe into the pressure, let it mount, let it press until it cracks open the shell of who you were. Because on the other side of this compression is the timeline where your potential is not hypothetical, it's embodied. The DNA breakthrough is the event horizon. Once you cross, you cannot go back. And here is the revelation. Your personal DNA breakthrough is not private. It is entangled. Every strand that awakens in you becomes a template for others. You are not carrying only your destiny. You are carrying humanity's evolution. In the final segment of this transmission, you will see clearly, your shift is not about survival or even success. It is about anchoring a new phase of human story. You are the proof that evolution is conscious, and your awakening is the ignition point for the collective leap. Now the field hands you the final summons. Everything you have learned, felt, and done converges into a single, operable mission. This is not a pep talk or another metaphor to file away. It is the executive brief for the life you were calibrated to live. You have become a coherent instrument. Now you are asked to become an active anchor. The difference is subtle but colossal. Being coherent is personal fidelity. Anchoring is collective stewardship. You will move from private transformation into public architecture, and you will do so with the quietry of a practiced craftsman, not loud, not visible for spectacle, but impossible to ignore in effect. Your mission is threefold and elegantly simple. First, embody the new frequency so consistently that it becomes contagious. This is not about perfection. It is about translation, living in such a way that others recognize possibility without needing lectures or proof. Your presence will make clarity credible. Second, protect the emergent spaces you touch. Phase transitions are delicate. They need buffers, places, and practices that hold coherence, while systems rearrange. Create those buffers in your relationships, your teams, your neighborhoods. Third, catalyze alignment where fragmentation reigns. When you meet confusion, do not fix it with force. Offer patterns, small practices, clear words, and steady containment that people can mirror. You are less a commander and more an architect of thresholds, building doorways that others can pass through. Expect resistance. Any field repatterning that lowers entropy will attract pushback, practical, social, and internal. The old attractors will attempt to reassert themselves. Some of your relationships will recalibrate. Some invitations will quietly evaporate. Some roles you thought permanent will dissolve. These losses are not punishments. They are clarifying edits. They reduce noise so that the emergent signal can be heard. When pressure mounts, remember the ritual you performed. Return to, receive, breathe, ground, redeclare your readiness. Your steadiness is a tool, and the tool requires maintenance. Operate with strategy, not urgency. The cosmic window demanded clarity. Now the long work begins. Systems change through repeated small acts, not occasional explosions. Your daily fidelity compounds into institutional change. Keep the rhythms that sustain you. Sleep, reset, practice, delight. Joy is not a reward for success. It is fuel for the mission. Celebrate small alignments. They are the scaffold of the larger architecture. Trust the intelligence that moved you here. You are not improvising alone. You are threaded into a lineage of emergent minds. Some of their faces you will meet directly. Others will be invisible allies whose resonance you feel in timings and openings. Reciprocity will form. As you give steadiness, support appears in forms you could not have planned. Accept help when it arrives. Give it when you can. This is how networks of coherence scale, through exchange and mutual maintenance. Finally, remember why any of this matters. Evolution is not a distant theory, it is a lived responsibility. When you stabilize, you do not merely improve your own odds, you alter the probability landscape available to thousands and, eventually, millions. The field remembers patterns faster than any individual memory. Your life becomes a template that shortens the learning curve for others. This is sacred work disguised as ordinary days. Stand now at the edge and look back. The loops that once held you tight are breaking. The pressure that almost crushed you has become the crucible that forged new instrumentation. Walk forward with deliberate breath, with hands that know how to hold a center, with a voice that names possibility without needing applause. You are not asking to be chosen. You have been called, activated, and witnessed by the field itself. If you are still watching, understand this as both announcement and covenant. You are marked, not by accident or algorithm, but by resonance, and your life is now the hinge between timelines. If you're still watching, you've been marked as one of the quantum shift initiates tonight.